Life hits different when you finally wake up and see what's been going on right under your nose. I'm Vanessa, 63, and for years I had been living with my son, Mason, and his wife, Kylie. I thought we were close, like mother and son, a tight bond. But let me tell you, turns out I was just giving, and they were taking. Never a thank you, never a, hey mom, you good? Just me bending over backwards, thinking it was love. It hit me hard one morning when I realized this was one-sided. Totally. I had spent years keeping the peace, covering for their screw-ups, lending money I'd never see again, ignoring my own needs, my own life, all for a family that didn't even notice I existed outside of what I could provide. Brutal. I grabbed a box of old photos, snapshots of Mason when he was a little kid, back when he was innocent, cute, and didn't have the chip on his shoulder that came later. The rest of the pictures, the ones from the messy, dark years, I boxed up separately. I decided I'd give them to him someday if we ever talked again. But for now, they weren't mine to keep. While I was putting the box away, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something made me press it. Hello? I said cautiously. Vanessa, it's Arthur from the library book club, said a male voice. Took me a second to place him. Yeah. I'd been to a couple of club meetings months back before things at home got so crazy I just stopped showing up. Arthur was older, a widower, always chill, had interesting takes on books, the kind of guy you'd actually want to hang with, not just nod at politely. Oh, hey Arthur, how's it going? I asked, kinda surprised. ... I noticed you've been MIA at the club. Got your number through the librarian. Hope you don't mind. Just checking if you're all right. And if you're planning to come back? Your thoughts on books? Always a breath of fresh air, he said, genuinely concerned. I gotta admit, it felt kinda nice. Someone noticed me. Not my son, not Kylie, not even the neighbors. Just some random guy at a book club. Thanks. Yeah. Life's been crazy, but I'd love to come back, I said. Fast forward to Thursday. I'm standing outside the library clutching my book, butterflies in my stomach. Felt dumbly nervous, like, who's scared of a book club? Me, apparently. Arthur sees me first, grinning like he's been waiting for this moment. Vanessa, what a joy! He introduces me to some new faces, and the vibe is warm, welcoming. We dive into Marquez's magical world, debating, laughing, connecting. I feel alive, like a fog I didn't know I'd been in is lifting. After the club, he asks, coffee? I hesitate a sec, then nod. Yeah, why not? We hit a little cafe 2 blocks away, cozy vibes, brick walls, that sweet coffee smell. Arthur talks about his life, retired engineer, widowed 3 years, 2 daughters living far away, keeps busy with reading, walks, and salsa classes. Then he looks at me, genuinely curious. And you? What's been up these months? I keep it short. Tell him about the chaos at home with Mason and Kylie, moving into my own spot. He listens without judgment. Just nods. You made a brave call, he says. Big changes ain't easy at our age, but sometimes happiness calls for it. His words, simple but hit deep. And hey, he continues, grinning, I got a small crew going salsa dancing Saturday. Free lessons first, social dancing after. Wanna come? No pressure. I blinked. Salsa? Last time I danced was before Robert passed. But something about it felt exciting, not scary. "You know what? I'm in," I said, grinning back. We swap numbers, hug, and I walk back to my place lighter than I felt in years. Life isn't over, not by a long shot. That night, I sit on my balcony, sipping tea, staring at the city lights, thinking, this is it. So after that first coffee with Arthur, I started realizing something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Freedom. Not the kind you just read about in books or hear in speeches. Real freedom. Where your choices aren't dictated by someone else's greed, laziness, or entitlement. Living with Mason and Kylie had drained every ounce of energy I had. Like they'd slowly siphoned off my joy and confidence until all that was left was a hollow version of me, smiling when I should have been fuming. But now, I was back. I could actually breathe again. The weekend rolled around and Saturday night came fast. I dug out that peach-colored dress I'd bought years ago and never dared to wear. It was simple, light, something that made me feel alive. I fussed with my hair for a bit, enough to feel decent, but not like I was trying too hard. When Arthur rang the doorbell right at 7, I took a deep breath, opened the door. A dance club was buzzing, full of folks like me, older, seasoned, some timid, some confident, all there to just move and laugh and feel the music. Arthur led me to the beginner class. He had that patient smile on his face, the one that said, "No matter how many times you step on my feet, it's all good." And of course, I stepped on his feet. A lot. But we laughed through it, laughed until our cheeks hurt, until strangers gave us amused looks and the instructor shook her head, smiling at our clumsy enthusiasm. By the time social dancing started, I was sweating a little, heart racing, but in the best way. Arthur held my hand, guided me across the floor, and even when we stumbled, it didn't matter. For the first time in forever, I felt like myself, not the overburdened mom, not the doormat, just me, moving, laughing, alive. And Arthur? He didn't just watch, he participated. His laughter blended with mine, easy, natural. That night, walking home under streetlights, I realized how much I had missed this. Connection without strings. Life without manipulation. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. Over the next few weeks, my routine started to shift. Monday mornings, I made coffee and sat on my balcony, letting the sun warm my face. I called Sarah, my friend from back when I still had hobbies, and we laughed about silly things, gossip-free, judgment-free. Thursdays were for book club, and Saturdays were for salsa. Sundays, Arthur and I would take long walks in the park, talking about everything and nothing. Slowly, I started to feel that life I'd buried under Mason and Kylie's chaos returning. Meanwhile, selling the house turned out to be smoother than I imagined. Sarah handled the paperwork like a pro, triple-checking everything so I wouldn't have to stress. By the time the check arrived, nearly $300,000 after expenses, I stared at it like it was a treasure chest, filled not with gold, but with possibility. That money didn't just represent cash, it represented independence, a second chance, my ability to make choices for myself and no one else. Moving into my new condo was a blessing in disguise. because I had gotten rid of most of my old stuff, the move was simple. Arthur offered to help, of course, and I won't lie, I was secretly thrilled he did. With Sarah and some book club friends in tow, what could have been a stressful day turned into a small celebration. Boxes, furniture, photos, plants. Everything felt right. We laughed while assembling shelves, argued over where a painting should go, joked about how I was way too particular with throw pillows. Sarah brought pizza. Arthur poured drinks, and for the first time in a long time, I felt surrounded by people who cared, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. I made my space my own. Light, airy colors everywhere. No dark, oppressive tones Kylie used to hate. Plants in corners, even if they meant watering sometimes. Photos that reflected joy, trips I wanted to take, memories that made me smile. Even the balcony became sacred, a little corner of peace where I could sip coffee, watch the park below, and just exist. Not anyone else's version of me, just mine. Arthur didn't rush anything. He showed up. We spent time together, but it wasn't overwhelming, just natural. Book club, salsa, walks, coffee, conversations about books, life, regrets, dreams. Nothing forced, no games, no lies. And that simplicity, after years of emotional chaos, felt revolutionary. 3 months in, we were cooking dinner together one evening. I chopped, he chopped. We joked about missing fingers, dropped knives, spilled ingredients. It was chaos, but it felt like home. Then he paused, looked at me seriously, and said something that hit me harder than any betrayal ever had. Vanessa, these past months, you've given me back something I thought I'd lost forever. Joy, hope. You're important to me. My heart squeezed. I hadn't realized I'd allowed myself to trust again, to lean on someone without fear. Arthur, you're important to me too. You remind me life doesn't end when you get burned. There's still good, still reasons to smile. We hugged in that kitchen, a quiet kind of comfort. Both of us survivors of tough years, finally feeling seen, appreciated, and alive. And just when I thought life couldn't get more full circle, I got a call. Mason. My first instinct? Ignore it. But something in me, curiosity, caution, hope, I answered. Hi, Mom, he said, voice low, tired. Hi, Mason. I kept it neutral, guarded. Turns out, Kylie had finally burned him the way she burned everyone else. They divorced and he was barely scraping by, starting from zero. He admitted his mistakes, went to therapy, and even asked, timidly, if someday we could maybe have coffee. I fought long and hard. Maybe when you're ready to be the son I needed, not the one I got. When you see me as a person, not a resource, then yeah, maybe. And just like that, a small window of possibility opened. But this time, I didn't feel desperation. I felt control. Life wasn't dictated by their whims anymore. I had myself. And for now, that was everything. Life had started feeling lighter, like walking on air after years of dragging through mud. Vanessa's mornings became sacred little rituals. Coffee on the balcony, warm sunlight spilling across the floor, the park below buzzing with life while she sipped slowly, soaking it all in. No yelling, no guilt trips, no drama. Just the simple satisfaction of being alive on her own terms. Arthur would usually call around mid-morning, sometimes just to check in, sometimes with little goofy stories from his week. Book club nights became a highlight she looked forward to more than she could have imagined. The library itself had a comforting, familiar smell. Books that smelled faintly of old paper, dust, and quiet secrets. She slipped into that lavender dress one Thursday, the one that made her feel confident but not flashy. Walking through the library doors, she felt a twinge of excitement mixed with a pinch of nerves, a feeling she hadn't experienced in decades. Arthur was already there, leaning casually against a bookshelf, spotting her immediately. "Vanessa! There she is!" His grin was infectious, warm, and unapologetically sincere. Vanessa waved, and the small group at the table greeted her with smiles. A few new faces had joined since her last visit, but there was no awkwardness. Everyone had an ease about them, like they were there for the joy of connection, not for any social performance. That night, the discussion was lively. Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude became the perfect topic for laughter, heated debate, and insightful analysis. Vanessa shared thoughts she hadn't dared voice before, opinions about love, loss, and resilience that made the group nod thoughtfully. She was no longer someone fading into the background, silenced by fear or manipulation. Her voice mattered, and she was starting to feel that again, like it was a muscle she'd been forced to forget existed. After the meeting ended, Arthur nudged her playfully. "Coffee? I promise not to step on your toes this time." She laughed, the sound genuine and carefree, and they headed to the little brick-walled cafe 2 blocks away. The smell of coffee, pastries, and warm conversation enveloped them as they picked a window seat. Arthur told stories of engineering projects from his younger days, his daughter's latest escapades, and his recent foray into dance lessons. Vanessa shared snippets of her life without feeling like she had to justify herself. Stories about her condo, the tiny victories of independence, and the small joys she'd reclaimed. Weeks turned into months, and Vanessa found herself thriving in ways she hadn't imagined. Salsa on Saturdays became ritualistic. Arthur was patient, gentle, encouraging her every step of the way, laughing with her when she tripped or spun too fast. She remembered thinking, "I haven't felt this alive since before all that chaos with Mason and Kylie." Even her apartment transformed with her newfound confidence. Light colors replaced dark, oppressive tones. Plants filled corners, photos adorned the walls, each frame holding a memory, a dream, or a hope. The balcony became her sanctuary, a space to just be, to watch families in the park, listen to children's laughter, and drink in the world without fear. Arthur sometimes joined her, sitting quietly, coffee in hand, exchanging comfortable silences that spoke louder than words. Vanessa also noticed how much lighter she felt financially. Selling the house had given her freedom beyond just cash. Nearly $300,000 in the bank, meant she could make choices for herself without fear of being cornered or manipulated. She didn't just survive now, she thrived. Furniture, decorations, little indulgences, all bought not out of necessity, but for happiness. She learned. One Sunday afternoon, Arthur and Vanessa strolled through the park. The air smelled of early spring, fresh grass, blooming flowers, and that faint aroma of the city waking up. They watched children chase bubbles, couples hold hands, and older folks like them walking slowly but with smiles. "Funny how life just keeps going, huh?" Vanessa said, nudging Arthur gently. Arthur chuckled. "Yeah, and somehow we keep finding our place in it, even when it feels like we've missed too much. I think I'm finally learning that it's never too late to find yourself," she replied. "I spent years letting others decide my worth. Now I finally feel like me." Arthur smiled softly, squeezing her hand. "That's what I've been trying to tell you. You deserve this, all of it, and I'm glad to be part of it, even in a small way." It wasn't just about him, though. Vanessa had started connecting with people again. Sarah and her family, book club members, even neighbors. Her calendar was full of little adventures, literary festivals, park picnics, weekend coffees, and even small art exhibits. For the first time in a long time, Vanessa realized life was happening around her, not just to her. One afternoon, she sat in her condo, going through old photos. Most of them she donated or tossed, but she kept a small collection of images from when Mason was little, innocent, unspoiled, before the toxicity had crept in. She smiled sadly, realizing that while she couldn't change the past, she could honor it without letting it define her. That box of memories became a symbol of balance, acknowledgement of her past, but no longer bondage to it. Arthur's presence remained steady, never overwhelming. Some days they cooked together, others they just sat on the balcony, sipping coffee and watching the world. There were conversations about life's mistakes, regrets, and lessons learned, but also laughter, jokes, and gentle teasing. The ease of it was liberating. He didn't try to fix her. She didn't try to rescue him. They were simply two people enjoying the companionship of someone who finally understood. Then came the day Vanessa got a call from Mason. Her heart jumped at first, but she braced herself. He sounded beaten down, genuinely remorseful, and explained how he had started therapy and was trying to rebuild his life after the fallout with Kylie. He even suggested maybe meeting for coffee in the future if she felt ready. Vanessa thought carefully. Maybe, when you're ready to be the son I always needed, not the one I got. When you can see me as a person, not a resource. Hanging up, she felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, a little sadness, but mostly empowerment. The past had happened, but it no longer controlled her. She had built a life on her own terms, surrounded by people who actually cared, not just took. Even 6 months into her new life, Vanessa knew she'd come a long way. The betrayal and pain hadn't disappeared, but they no longer held her hostage. She had found joy in small things, the sun on her face, the smell of coffee, the sound of music, the touch of someone who respected her boundaries, and the knowledge that she could say no to anyone without guilt. Arthur arrived one evening, his usual grin plastered on his face, holding 2 cups of coffee. Vanessa grabbed her jacket and walking shoes, ready for their weekly stroll. She paused at the door, looked around her apartment, a little sanctuary of freedom, warmth, and light, and smiled. The past was behind her. The future was full of possibilities, and for the first time in decades, Vanessa felt completely, unapologetically alive. The days kept rolling, each one a little brighter than the last. Vanessa woke up with a sense of anticipation, not anxiety, a feeling that had been foreign to her for years. She loved the mornings on her balcony, the sun just peeking over the trees in the park below, kids laughing, joggers pacing themselves like the world had all the time it needed. She sipped her coffee slowly, savoring it, letting herself feel like she deserved this calm. No one was pulling her in a million directions, no one demanding her attention or approval. This was her time, her life. Arthur became a regular fixture in her days, not in a clingy way, not as some substitute for the chaos she'd escaped, but like a warm, steady presence. Sometimes they met for walks in the park, sometimes they cooked together in her tiny but cheerful kitchen. Their conversations were effortless, flowing between the silly and the serious. He'd share stories about his engineering projects, little triumphs with his daughters, or tales from his salsa classes. Vanessa would listen, laughing at his jokes, teasing him gently when he got competitive over a board game or a cooking challenge. Life felt light. Book club nights remained a highlight, but Vanessa started noticing something else. She was remembering herself, not just the version that had been buried under decades of sacrifice, manipulation, and guilt, but the girl who had loved books, music, and laughter. She started taking little solo adventures again, museums, art exhibits, even the occasional theater performance. Sometimes Arthur joined her, sometimes she went alone, but each time she returned, she felt more like the Vanessa who had been lost for so long. One evening while cooking with Arthur, Vanessa realized how much her confidence had grown. She chopped vegetables without worrying about making a mess, seasoned chicken just the way she liked it, and laughed freely when Arthur accidentally dropped a spoon into the sink with a clatter. "You're really good at this," he said, genuinely impressed. "Yeah? Took me long enough to get back to enjoying cooking instead of it feeling like a chore," she replied. He laughed. "I think you're officially reclaiming your life, Vanessa. I see it. You're glowing." That word, glowing, made her chest swell. It wasn't vanity. It was recognition. She was glowing, not because of how she looked, but because of how she felt. Free, strong, alive. And she knew it wasn't just about Arthur. She had built a life for herself that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. A life where her voice, her choices, her happiness mattered. One Saturday, Arthur suggested they try a new salsa club downtown. Vanessa hesitated at first. New place, new people. But the spark of adventure had been lit in her again. They arrived, and the energy of the room hit her immediately. Music thumping, people laughing, spinning, moving in sync. She felt her nerves rise, but also a thrill. Arthur guided her through the steps, his patience unwavering. They stumbled, laughed, corrected, stumbled again. And through it all, Vanessa realized she hadn't felt this genuinely alive in years. Each step, each misstep, was a tiny victory against the fear and doubt that had haunted her for decades. Life wasn't all perfect, though. Vanessa still had moments of doubt, lingering shadows of old guilt and worry. She thought about Mason from time to time, how he had taken advantage of her, how Kylie had manipulated both of them. But those thoughts no longer held the same power over her. She acknowledged them, learned from them, and let them drift away like clouds. The anger that had once consumed her had transformed into a quiet, firm resolve. She wouldn't let anyone steal her joy again. Then came a phone call that shook her briefly. Mason. His voice was hesitant, worn, but respectful. He told her he had started therapy, that he was trying to make sense of the mistakes he had made, that he wanted to rebuild some semblance of honesty and integrity. Vanessa listened carefully, her heart steady. She didn't rush to forgive, didn't feel the old hurt flare up, but she also didn't slam the door completely. Maybe, when you're ready to be the son I always needed, she said softly, we can have that coffee, but only when you understand what respect and honesty mean. The conversation ended with a cautious hope. Not a full reconciliation, not yet, but a window open. And for the first time, Vanessa felt neither guilt nor fear about it. She had built her own foundation and could face whatever came next with clarity and strength. Her apartment became a haven of joy and comfort. Vanessa loved sitting by the window with her journal, writing down ideas, plans, dreams, or even just silly thoughts. The walls were bright and airy, adorned with artwork she picked herself. Plants flourished in every corner, and she tended them like friends. Every object, every little decoration was a statement. She was here, and she mattered. Even the small, mundane routines became celebrations of independence. Grocery shopping became a small adventure. Coffee runs were sacred moments of indulgence, and she even began hosting little dinner parties for friends she'd made through book club. Sarah and her family became close, like a chosen family she had picked for herself. And Arthur was there not as a savior, but as a partner in laughter, conversation, and shared experiences. One evening, they walked along the park, the sun dipping below the skyline. The air smelled like spring, fresh grass, flowers, and that faint city hum. Vanessa breathed deeply, feeling the warmth of life coursing through her. You know, I never thought I'd get here, she said, glancing at Arthur. You mean alive, happy, independent? He teased gently. Exactly. I spent so many years feeling trapped, used, and invisible. But now, she smiled, looking at the park below, filled with families and laughter. I'm finally living my life for me. Arthur squeezed her hand. And it's beautiful. You've earned this, every step. Vanessa leaned into him, feeling a rare and unshakable peace. She thought of the past, the betrayals, the heartbreak, the moments of despair. But those things no longer controlled her. They were lessons, not chains. And with that understanding, she realized she could face whatever the future held with courage, joy, and self-respect. That night, back in her apartment, Vanessa reflected on how far she had come. The house sale, the move, reclaiming her independence, and building new relationships weren't just logistical victories. They were triumphs of the soul. She had taken back her voice, her time, her freedom, and her happiness. And while life would inevitably throw challenges her way, She knew she could handle them because she had rebuilt herself stronger than ever. The doorbell rang. Arthur, punctual as ever, stood there with a warm smile, coffee in hand, ready for their weekly stroll. Vanessa grabbed her jacket, walking shoes on, and stepped out, closing the door behind her. The park awaited. The evening air was crisp, and life felt wide open. She had reclaimed everything that had been stolen from her, and then some. And this was only the beginning. Life kept moving, and Vanessa was right there, catching every bit of it without hesitation. The mornings on her balcony became a ritual she couldn't skip. Coffee steaming in her hands, sunlight spilling over the park, and the gentle hum of the city below. But now, mornings weren't just quiet reflection. They were planning sessions for all the things she'd put off for years. She scribbled little notes in her journal, places to visit, books to read, even tiny goals like trying a new recipe or learning a new dance move. The possibilities felt endless, and for the first time, she wasn't scared to chase them. Arthur became more than just a companion. He was a cheerleader for her rediscovery, not in a pushy way, but in that gentle, patient style of someone who genuinely cared. One morning, he suggested, "Why don't we take a weekend trip? Just you and me. No schedules, no chaos. Somewhere we've never been." Vanessa's eyes lit up. The idea of getting out of the city, even for a couple of days, sounded like the perfect escape. They settled on a small lakeside town a few hours away, a place with hiking trails, little cafes, and a charming bed and breakfast that promised peaceful mornings and starry nights. Packing was a joy rather than a chore. Vanessa realized she didn't need much, just the essentials, her journal, her camera, and a few of her favorite outfits. She caught herself smiling at the thought of being entirely responsible for her own schedule, her own comfort. For years, she'd lived under someone else's rules, their expectations, their demands. Now, she made the rules, and it felt incredible. The trip itself was everything she'd imagined and more. They spent the days walking along trails lined with autumn leaves, laughing when Arthur got overly competitive on a makeshift scavenger hunt they made up for fun. They sat by the lake in the late afternoons, sharing sandwiches and hot chocolate, watching the reflection of the clouds on the water, talking about everything and nothing. Vanessa felt her chest open with a kind of peace she hadn't felt in decades. One evening, after dinner at a small local diner, Vanessa and Arthur walked back to the bed and breakfast under a sky full of stars. "You know, I never thought I'd feel this alive again," she said, brushing her hand against his. "I mean, really alive. Like, life is something to savor, not just survive." Arthur smiled, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "You deserve this, Vanessa. You've worked so hard to get here, and you're embracing it in the best way possible." The next morning, Vanessa woke up before sunrise, a cup of coffee in hand, and stepped onto the balcony of their room. The lake was still, the water smooth like glass, and the world felt like it was just hers to explore. She took a deep breath, feeling the crisp air fill her lungs, and realized she had almost forgotten the joy of watching a sunrise, the thrill of witnessing the world waking up. All those years trapped in chaos, she had missed it. Now she would never miss a single one again. Back home, her life continued its upward swing. She reconnected with old friends she hadn't seen in years, inviting them over for casual dinners or coffee at her apartment. She was no longer timid about setting boundaries. She politely said no to those who had previously drained her energy, and enthusiastically yes to the people and activities that brought her joy. Book club meetings became almost sacred, a place where she could geek out about literature without judgment. She even started leading discussions occasionally, surprising herself with how much confidence she had regained. Arthur and Vanessa's weekends became little adventures. They tried new restaurants, attended live jazz nights, and even joined a community painting class just for laughs. Each new activity reinforced Vanessa's sense of independence while deepening their bond. She loved how comfortable their companionship felt. No pressure, no games, just two people enjoying each other's company while fully living their own lives. Vanessa also started investing in her hobbies again. She picked up photography, capturing candid moments of city life, the park, and even Arthur dancing ridiculously while trying to pose for her camera. She painted small canvases with vibrant colors she never dared use before. Every creation felt like reclaiming a part of herself that had been buried under years of stress and manipulation. One evening, while sorting through a box of old letters and keepsakes she had salvaged from her previous home, Vanessa came across a note from her younger self, scribbled in messy handwriting, filled with dreams, hopes, and excitement for life. She held it in her hands, smiling softly, realizing that all the mistakes, all the heartbreak, had somehow led her here to this moment of peace, strength, and freedom. Then came another phone call from Mason. Vanessa paused before answering, but curiosity got the better of her. Mason's voice was softer now, less entitled, more reflective. He told her he was continuing therapy, that he wanted to genuinely understand how he had hurt her, and that he hoped, one day, he could show up as the son she deserved. Vanessa listened, feeling no anger, no rush to forgive. Just a quiet acknowledgement that he was taking the first steps on a path he had to walk alone. She reassured him that she wasn't closing the door, but that any future would require time, honesty, and real change. Weeks later, Vanessa received a call from Sarah, inviting her to a weekend family gathering. Vanessa agreed eagerly. She realized that she had built a little chosen family around her, people who loved and respected her, people she enjoyed. ... It was a reminder that family didn't always have to be blood. It could be the people who truly cared, who supported, and who celebrated your victories with you. Every evening, Arthur and Vanessa would walk to the park together. Sometimes they held hands. Sometimes they just walked side by side, talking about their day, laughing about small misadventures, or sharing quiet moments of reflection. Life was full, rich, and genuine. She had traded fear, manipulation, and betrayal for laughter, creativity, and the freedom to make every choice for herself. Vanessa often thought about the past, not with bitterness, but as a reminder of how far she had come. The betrayal she endured, the years of feeling invisible, all had taught her resilience. But more than that, they taught her to value herself, her time, and her happiness. She realized that life was too short to settle for anything less than respect, joy, and genuine connection. And as she watched the city lights flicker on from her balcony each evening, Arthur by her side, coffee in hand, she felt the kind of contentment that only comes from truly reclaiming yourself. She was no longer just surviving. She was living, thriving, and loving life on her terms. Vanessa knew the future was wide open, filled with possibilities, adventures, and moments she had yet to imagine. And for the first time in a very long time, she couldn't wait to see what came next. Vanessa woke up one Thursday morning, feeling this buzz she hadn't felt in forever, a mix of excitement and pure curiosity. She glanced at her calendar and realized it was stacked with plans. Brunch with Sarah, a visit to the book club to prep for their literary festival trip, and a long overdue coffee date with a friend she hadn't seen in years. But the best part? She wasn't stressed about any of it. Back in the old days, her life had been a pressure cooker. People demanding, schedules controlled by others, every decision second-guessed. Now, she had the reins, and it felt freaking amazing. After her balcony coffee, she grabbed her favorite tote bag, packed her camera, and headed out the door. The city felt different somehow, brighter, like it was letting her in on a secret she had been too wrapped up in chaos to notice before. People passed by, rushing, chatting, laughing, and for the first time in years, she felt like she belonged, right there in the middle of it all. At brunch with Sarah, the conversation flowed effortlessly. They talked about family, friends, and the little victories that sometimes went unnoticed. The first blooms of spring, a good book, or a simple walk in the park. Vanessa realized she missed this connection more than she had realized. Sharing her victories, her laughs, and even her fears with someone who genuinely cared felt like a balm on years of neglect. After brunch, Vanessa went straight to the library for book club prep. She felt like a kid before Christmas, picking out her favorite passages, scribbling notes, and imagining the discussions they'd have during the festival trip. The group welcomed her back with warm smiles and hugs. Arthur waved from across the room, giving her that grin she'd come to adore, one that said, "Life's good, isn't it?" She nodded back, heart light, feeling grateful for the consistency of their friendship, this grounding presence in her whirlwind of rediscovery. Later that afternoon, Vanessa met up with her old friend, Michelle, at a cozy little cafe tucked between two bustling streets. The moment they hugged, Vanessa felt the years melt away, the fear, the doubt, all of it. They chatted about life, their work, their ups and downs, and Vanessa found herself laughing until tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. It hit her that she hadn't laughed like this in a long, long time. Not the polite chuckle or the forced grin, but full-on belly laughs that made her chest ache. It was liberating, addictive even. That evening, back at her apartment, Vanessa poured herself a glass of wine and settled onto the balcony. She watched the city lights shimmer and reflect off the park's pond. Life had thrown her some serious curveballs: betrayal, loss, and years of feeling invisible. But somehow, she had caught them all and turned them into something positive. She felt a deep sense of pride, not just for surviving, but for thriving. She had faced the darkness head-on and emerged with her spirit intact. Arthur called just as the sun dipped below the skyline. "Hey, you up for a late stroll?" he asked. Vanessa grinned. "Always. Give me 20 minutes." She slipped into her sneakers, grabbed a light jacket, and headed out. Walking side by side, they wandered along the tree-lined paths, talking about everything and nothing. Vanessa felt the ease of their companionship, the kind that didn't need constant validation or drama. She could just be with him, and it was enough. During their walk, Arthur suggested something spontaneous. "Vanessa, what do you say we take a weekend getaway next month? No agenda, just exploration. Maybe hit a coastal town or a mountain retreat?" Vanessa's eyes lit up. The idea of packing up and hitting the road, even for a couple of days, thrilled her. "Count me in," she said without hesitation. Adventure, she realized, wasn't just for the young. It was for anyone willing to chase it, to grab life by the handlebars and ride. A few weeks later, Vanessa found herself on a little road trip along the coast. The wind whipped through her hair and the salty air filled her lungs as they drove with the windows down. Laughing at silly radio songs and sharing stories, they explored hidden beaches, quirky diners, and little art galleries that Vanessa would have walked past without noticing before. Each stop felt like a treasure, a small reminder that the world was full of beauty if you were willing to look. One afternoon, they stumbled upon a small community fair in a tiny coastal town. Vanessa's heart swelled as she watched families laughing, couples dancing, and kids running around with sticky fingers. She realized that joy didn't have to be complicated. It was in these simple moments, the laughter of strangers, the smell of popcorn in the air, the warmth of the sun on her skin. She felt lighter than she had in decades, untethered from the past and fully present in the now. That night, back at their cozy inn, Vanessa sat on the porch with a cup of cocoa while Arthur strummed his guitar softly. The music, the stars above, and the gentle lapping of waves below created a moment she would never forget. She thought about the road she'd traveled, the toxic relationships, the betrayals, the years of feeling trapped, and how far she had come. And she realized something profound. Happiness wasn't about the absence of pain. It was about reclaiming your life, piece by piece, and deciding that you deserved it anyway. Vanessa also started journaling more consistently, documenting her adventures, her thoughts, her triumphs, and even the small setbacks. Reading back through her entries, she could see the growth, the confidence, and the empowerment she had cultivated. Every entry was a testament to her resilience, a reminder that she was no longer a passive participant in her own life. She was the author, the director, and the main character. Returning home from the trip, Vanessa carried a newfound zest for life. She embraced her hobbies, friendships, and even the quiet moments alone with a gratitude she had never felt before. She continued dancing salsa with Arthur, attended book club meetings with gusto, and organized little outings for herself and her chosen family. Life felt abundant, vibrant, and fully hers to live. Even Mason's occasional calls no longer brought anxiety or resentment. She listened, responded with calm honesty, and let the conversation unfold naturally. She realized that forgiveness and closure weren't about forgetting the past. They were about protecting your peace while acknowledging the truth. Vanessa woke up on a bright Saturday morning with this zing of energy she hadn't felt in forever. She stretched, yawned, and poured herself a cup of coffee while listening to the city wake up. The apartment felt alive, every corner echoing the choices she had made, the life she was now building. No one else's rules, no one else's drama, just her. It was a new chapter, and she was ready to write it bold. She threw on a casual sundress, tied her hair back in a loose bun, and grabbed her tote with her journal, sunglasses, and phone. Today wasn't just any day. Arthur was picking her up for their monthly salsa marathon at the downtown club. She hadn't danced like this in decades, but the thought made her grin like a kid. Dancing wasn't just about moving to the rhythm, it was about letting go, about reclaiming joy she'd been denied for years. Arthur arrived right on time, grinning ear to ear. "Ready to shake things up?" he joked as she slid into the passenger seat. Vanessa laughed, born ready. They drove through the buzzing streets, windows down, letting the warm breeze and city sounds wash over them. Conversation flowed easily, like it always did. No agendas, no pretenses, just two people enjoying the moment. At the club, Vanessa was immediately swept into the music. The salsa class was packed, but she didn't feel intimidated. Arthur guided her, patient and playful, and she felt her confidence bloom with every step. They stumbled a few times, stepping on toes, missing beats. But it didn't matter. Laughter filled the gaps. Vanessa felt light, liberated, and alive in a way she hadn't known in decades. After the class, the social dancing began. Vanessa and Arthur moved seamlessly, their laughter mixing with the rhythm. Around her, couples twirled, friends joked, and the night air was charged with energy. She felt free. For years, Vanessa had been trapped, emotionally, financially, mentally, by people who didn't value her. But here in this room, with music and laughter, she felt untouchable. Her past didn't define her. She did. Later, on the drive home, they stopped by a little diner for milkshakes. Sitting across from Arthur, Vanessa realized how much she had changed. She used to be timid, cautious, constantly questioning her worth. Now she spoke freely, laughed without holding back, and embraced life with a gusto that shocked even her. Arthur smiled at her, that soft, warm smile that had become her anchor. "You're glowing, Vanessa," he said. She chuckled, shrugging. "Just figuring out how awesome life can be when you finally put yourself first." Over the next few weeks, Vanessa started planning small adventures for herself. She signed up for a painting class she'd always wanted to try, booked a weekend retreat in the mountains, and even joined a local hiking club. Each activity was a chance to reclaim parts of herself she had buried under years of stress and betrayal. She realized life wasn't about waiting for permission. It was about seizing it every single day. One evening, while sketching in her journal on the balcony, she received a text from her real estate agent. The last check from the house sale had cleared, and the account was officially in her name. Vanessa stared at the numbers, feeling a wave of relief and triumph. The money represented more than financial independence. It symbolized freedom. She could finally live on her own terms, make choices without guilt, and rebuild her life without anyone's interference. Her friendship with Arthur deepened during this time. They shared long walks, quiet dinners, and even started hosting little game nights with friends from the book club. Vanessa loved how natural it felt, how easy it was to be herself without judgment. Arthur had a way of seeing her for who she really was: fun, vibrant, witty and strong, and she realized how rare that was. Most of her life, she had bent to the needs and whims of others, but now she was the priority, and it felt incredible. One Saturday, while packing for a short weekend getaway with Arthur, Vanessa paused and took a long look at herself in the mirror. Gone was the woman who flinched at confrontation, who gave too much and expected too little in return. In her place stood someone confident, assertive, and unapologetically herself. The reflection staring back at her smiled, radiant and proud. She whispered almost to herself, "This is the life I earned." On the trip, they explored coastal towns, quirky cafes, and art galleries Vanessa had only dreamed of visiting. At one point, they stumbled across a local dance festival. Vanessa's eyes lit up. "We can't pass this up," she said, grabbing Arthur's hand. They danced under strings of fairy lights, surrounded by strangers, yet feeling completely free. The music, the laughter, the energy, it all felt surreal. Vanessa realized happiness wasn't about perfection. It was messy, vibrant, unpredictable, and completely worth it. Returning home, Vanessa's apartment felt even more like a sanctuary. She had redecorated corners, hung new artwork, and filled her home with light and plants. Every object, every photo, every little detail reflected her choices, her joy, and her growth. Her life was finally hers in every sense of the word. A few days later, she got a call from Lucas. Her chest tightened for a second, but she answered calmly. His voice was tentative, hesitant. He admitted the mess he and Chloe had made, confessed to financial mistakes, and said he was starting therapy. Vanessa listened without judgment, feeling a quiet satisfaction. She realized she didn't need to fix him or rush forgiveness. She could set boundaries, offer kindness, and let life unfold naturally. That was enough. Saturday morning rolled in with that crisp, sweet energy only spring could bring. Vanessa sipped her coffee on the balcony, legs curled up under her, eyes scanning the park below. Families were out. Kids laughing, couples strolling hand in hand, dogs chasing frisbees. She felt this deep, warm calm settle in her chest. For years, she thought happiness was some distant dream. But now, here it was, woven into every tiny, ordinary moment. Her phone buzzed. Arthur's text. "Meet you in 20 for our walk?" Vanessa smiled, texted back a quick yes, and grabbed her jacket. Walking out the door, she took a deep breath, feeling alive in a way she hadn't since she was in her 20s. The past, heavy and painful, but gone. The future, wide open, brimming with possibilities. Arthur was waiting at the corner, grinning that warm, familiar grin. "Morning, superstar," he teased. Vanessa laughed. "You're lucky I didn't trip over my own feet, rushing to meet you." They started walking through the park, the conversation flowing as effortlessly as always. They talked about books, art, their little adventures, and even the mundane, weather, weird neighbors, funny things from the week. Nothing felt forced. Nothing felt heavy. On the way back, Vanessa's phone rang. She saw Lucas's name flash and paused, hand hovering over the screen. Memories of betrayal, frustration, and anger flickered through her mind. But this time, there was no panic, no instant emotional tug. She swiped to answer. "Hey, Mom," Lucas said. voice tentative. I just wanted to say thanks. Vanessa tilted her head, waiting. Thanks for what, Lucas? For everything. For not shutting me out completely. I'm working on myself. Therapy, budgeting, figuring out why I let things get so messy. I know I hurt you. Big time. And I'm sorry. Really. His voice cracked, low and earnest. Vanessa smiled softly, feeling that small sprout of hope she had felt months ago in bloom again. Lucas, acknowledging it as a start. You can't change the past, but you can decide who you want to be from here on out. I want to be better. For me, and maybe someday for us, he said. Someday is fine, Vanessa replied, calm and steady. Right now, focus on yourself. And remember, I love you, but love doesn't mean enabling bad behavior. They hung up, and Vanessa felt this light, quiet peace. The door wasn't fully closed, but it wasn't swinging open either. She was in control of that narrative now. Her energy? Untouchable. Back home, Arthur arrived with 2 lattes and a mischievous grin. Thought you might need a pick-me-up before the next adventure, he said. Vanessa laughed, taking the cup. Always thinking of me. They settled on the balcony, sipping coffee, and watched life move below them. Ever think about how much we've both changed? Arthur asked, after a moment, breaking the comfortable silence. All the time, Vanessa admitted. I was lost, living under a cloud of other people's choices, their greed, their manipulation. And now, look at me. I wake up excited. I dance. I paint. I explore. I laugh. Life isn't perfect, but it's mine. Arthur reached out, squeezing her hand gently. And you've earned it, every step. You've fought, survived, and thrived. I'm lucky to witness it. Vanessa squeezed back, feeling warmth spread through her chest. We're lucky to find each other now. No pressure, no games, just us. The weekend rolled into evening, and Vanessa and Arthur found themselves at a quiet, little outdoor concert. String lights twinkled overhead. Music floated through the air, and Vanessa felt her soul stretch. She realized how different her life was now. She wasn't defined by betrayal, debt, or toxic relationships anymore. She was defined by her choices, her resilience, her joy. ... Walking back to the apartment, hand in hand with Arthur, she thought about the months that had brought her here. Selling the house, moving into her condo, reconnecting with friends, dancing, exploring, rebuilding her life piece by piece. It had been a journey of fire and water, pain and laughter. Every step had led her here. That night, Vanessa sat on her balcony, journal in lap, pen in hand. She wrote about the adventures, the lessons, the victories, big and small. She wrote about Lucas, about forgiveness, about boundaries, about finding herself again. And as she wrote, she realized she wasn't just recording memories. She was celebrating life. Arthur joined her with 2 mugs of tea. They clinked them together in a small toast. To new beginnings, he said softly. To us, Vanessa replied, smiling. And to everything we've earned. They sat together, sipping tea, letting the night wrap around them like a cozy blanket. Vanessa's gaze drifted over the park below, the city lights twinkling like tiny stars. She thought about all the years lost to toxic people, all the energy she had given away, and she understood something deeply, profoundly. She would never do that again. Ever. Her freedom wasn't just about money or moving out or cutting ties. It was about reclaiming herself, body, mind, and spirit. It was about choosing joy over obligation, love over manipulation, adventure over fear. And she had done it. Weeks passed, and life continued to blossom in unexpected, joyful ways. Vanessa traveled, danced, read, and explored with Arthur by her side. They laughed at clumsy moments, celebrated little victories, and savored ordinary life like it was extraordinary. Lucas slowly improved, learning, growing, and repairing himself. Vanessa watched from a distance, quietly proud, no longer carrying the weight of fixing him. One morning, sipping coffee on the balcony, Vanessa realized something. She had not only survived, she had thrived. She had faced betrayal, heartbreak, financial loss, and family dysfunction, and walked out stronger, wiser, and happier. Life had tested her, and she had passed, not by fighting others, but by loving herself. No more betrayal. No more exploitation. No more self-doubt. Just freedom, laughter, and love, the kind that lifted, not chained. And for the first time in decades, Vanessa felt complete, whole, and unstoppable. Standing on the balcony with Arthur beside her, the city spread out below, music drifting faintly from a nearby street. Vanessa whispered, more to herself than anyone else, "I did it. I finally did it." And she had. Her story wasn't just survival. It was triumph. The past was behind her, and the future, bright, boundless, and entirely hers.